Okay, quick disclaimer. I'm all about using the latest DJ gear and taking advantage of the cool features like performance pads, sync, advanced effects, pitch effects, you name it. And I think after I complete this series, I may even do a series on that, as let's face it, technology around DJing is changing and the older DJs have to accept that. And by incorporating modern DJing techniques, we can make our sets way more interesting and engaging, and all in all, have a ton of fun behind the decks. And for me, and like doing all that and having a lot of fun behind the decks, but also connecting people through music and atmosphere is personally what I feel DJing is all about. However, I do feel having rock solid foundations is a must, okay? And I don't feel DJs should be limited by the DJ gear they are using, and you should be able to do a great DJ set no matter what gear is in front of you. In this video, I want to prepare you for the very worst, and that is, let's say post-COVID, you get a show, and then you maybe even, you turn up to play and perhaps they've got older equipment there. And what I want to do is, see, I realize a lot of you have got controllers, so I'm going to bust out a controller this one, and I'm going to show you how to set up your controller so it kind of resembles what you're going to find on club gear. Okay, so what I want to do for you is, let's say you turn up in its old gear and you just don't know your way around it, to get you in a place that you can make anything work. And see, here's the thing, the club DJs that already have some experience will know exactly what I'm talking about, and that is, one day you're going to turn up and you'll turn up with your USB, and the advantage of using a USB is you just plug it in and it's easy to do changeovers. But then again, you're probably using their equipment unless you've got influence in the scene. And if the equipment's old and, let's say you can't sync, or, you can't see your big waveforms and stuff, and all of a sudden it's old, and, I've got videos on that too, like maybe the play button's not working and stuff like that. It could throw you. So I just want to kind of set it up for you so no matter what, you can turn up and play a killer set no matter what gear is in front of you. So it's the difference between driving an automatic or a manual. You can just drive. Okay, so first things first, the main differences between old and new gear is without a doubt screen visibility. So no matter what gear these days, you're always going to be able to see the mini waveforms, even on old club gear, okay? But on the older club gear, you may not be able to see the big waveforms and they won't have sync. So the first step, I personally feel, to get your core foundation super strong so you can DJ well no matter what the scenario, no matter what the gear, is learning to beat match 100% by ear and not relying on any visual aids. Now, personally, I feel regardless of the gear that you've got, knowing how to beat match is a must-know skill, because even if you are using sync, right, and let's say the beat grids are slightly out, it'll still sync to the actual grid, and that means that, honestly, using your ears is a lot better, and I talked a lot about that in the last class, right? But let's face it, right, if you're using a controller, the chances are not only are you using sync, which that's cool, man, I get that 100%, but if not, you can also match the lines of both waveforms visually. So if you truly want to know how to beat match without visuals, my advice would be actually hide the waveforms. And what you can do, let's say you've got like record box, I could just hit space and that actually takes it into browse mode. And what we're seeing here is you can still see the mini waveforms at the top. So you can see the mini waveforms, you can see the track's BPM, you can even see the key on here, right? And you can see your cue points as well. But you just can't see, I'll unspace it now, the main waveforms at the top, and that's where line matching comes in, right? So let's say so I'm saying just hide that. Now, if space doesn't work, you can also probably go into just your view. And if you're not using record box, don't worry about it. Like I'm gravitating around record box because if you are playing in clubs, they probably will expect you to use USB. And I'll be honest, turning up with USBs can be really cool. But the club gear is reading USBs, and to prepare your music for a USB, it's with record box. Like if you turn up with your music and it hasn't run through record box, the club gear, well, you're not going to be able to see the waveforms of BPM. So, but in saying that, all club gear and DJ gear pretty much all shares the same features. So if you want to hide the waveforms on Denon or Tractor or anything, just go find where it's view and go select browse mode. And that will actually, that makes it kind of like what you'd see in a club. You just see the waveforms. Well, then again, the new clubs, you can see everything, right? But I'm just saying, if you get the old gear, like let's say the CDJ 2000s, not the Nexus, but the 2000s, all you're going to be able to see is the actual waveforms here. So, okay, so I've done that. That's actually a really good start. And that's another thing, just quickly. hiding the waveforms. That's actually the beauty of these, what I'm using here. I've got the DDJ 1000 and also it's the DDJ 800 as well, the Pioneer ones. What they do is when you load the songs, they actually put the waveform, the BPM and the cue points here inside the actual jog wheels. So to be honest, if you had a DDJ 1000, put it into browse mode over here and actually just use that. That means it's awesome too. You can see more of your tracks here, and this is more about like loading the songs onto here. And then once you actually load it on, you don't look at your computer at all and you do your beat matching completely by ear and you just don't have sync on, and that will get you in a very good place, like super strong foundations. But that leads me to one more thing, and that is actually matching the BPM. See, what a lot of people say is, oh, they just use sync because it's very hard to get the BPMs exactly the same sometimes, especially on the cheaper gear. And that could come down to two things. So number one, it could come down to that your tempo fader here hasn't really got a lot of sensitivity. And firstly, that could be based on the tempo range that you've got it set at. So at the moment here, if I go here, and by the way, I just want to say something, like let's say you've got a controller, and let's say sometimes buttons have two features. And how you know that is, so this one here says master tempo, but underneath it in a gray little box, it says tempo range. And if there's like a thing in a gray box, it usually means it's a shift feature. So if I just hit master tempo, that's the equivalent of on the club gear just hitting the master tempo button, which is going to lock the key of the track, which means when you move this, it's not going to affect the key or the pitch, and kind of like an anti-chipmunk button, you know what I mean? But this tempo range button, to get that, I can go shift, hit that button, and then it's going to change my tempo range. Now the tempo ranges are usually, well, they're plus or minus 6, which now I've got it set on, which means when I move this, that means I can pretty much go 6 BPMs either side of its original BPM, and that's probably the least sensitive you can have it. Then if I hit it again, I can take that to plus or minus 10, which increases the range here. I can take it probably plus or minus 10 either side. If I hit it again, plus or minus 16, and then if you go even further, then it goes into wide mode, where that's where you lose all sensitivity. And say a beginner, what happens is they're on here and they're trying to move this like 1 BPM, and if that's in wide mode where it can kind of go 100, 200 BPMs, or 200 either side, right? Like, oh my God. You know, so what happens is people are in there trying to line it up 1 BPM and you just have no sensitivity. And how it goes into wide mode for beginners is they probably actually have sync on and they drag up a song. Let's say I've got a song here at 123 BPMs, and let's say I drag in one over here at 70 beats per minute. It's going to move it automatically to 123, which automatically shifts your tempo range into wide mode so it can actually make that adjustment. And then you hop on here when you actually take sync off and you have no sensitivity. So what I suggest is look at the tempo range. Now, that could be on your gear, depending on what gear you have. Otherwise, you can go find it on your software. And what you're looking for is like plus or minus 6, plus 10, plus or minus 16 on wide mode. And you probably want to get it into, well, plus or minus 6 would probably be the least sensitive. Okay, and that means then you probably have a better chance of getting those BPMs exactly. But let's say your gear's kind of old and you've still got it in plus or minus 6 and you're still struggling and you get to like 123.2. Well, yeah, just hit sync quickly, because on the club gear you'll have more sensitivity. So you hit sync quickly, lock up those BPMs, and I'd just take sync off, and then I'd actually practice beat matching manually. So okay, so let's give that a go now. So how about, say I've just got a song playing here. I go over here, I'm not looking at anything. That's on browse mode anyway, so I can't see anything. I can see the waveforms in here. If not, I'm looking at the waveforms on the actual gear. Just actually, I've put this into, well, plus or minus 6 I'll do at the moment, or plus or minus 10 is pretty cool, but it doesn't matter. Match that BPM to the one playing. Okay, cool, so they're the same BPMs. And I'm not going to do a proper mix, this is more like a beat matching thing. So I'd probably do it in my headphones, right? Okay, I do that. And then I've got a video on beat matching, so I'll link it in now, but here's the concept. Okay, cool, then you beat matching, you just practice beat matching, and you just practice doing your mixes without, actually, so they sounded kind of similar there, but you just sort of practice your beat matching, and just what I'm suggesting is, if you want to get club ready, just looking a little less at the visuals. And let's say you've got a XCJR X2, what you can do is, or even any kind of Denon, you can probably then, once you load the track, you can go back and put it into playlist mode. So all you want to be able to see if you want to get club ready and prepare for the very worst scenario is just get rid of those big waveforms where you can see the beats, turn sync off, and you can look at the mini waveforms. And in this case, they're inside here. And also when I put them in browse mode, I can see them on my computer. Okay, so that's step number one. Okay, so moving forward, the next big difference between old and new gear is that the old gear in clubs only reads memory cues and not hot cues. Now, the main difference between memory cues and hot cues are when you select memory cues on the club gear and also on most record box controllers, what it does is it'll go straight to that point of the song and it'll stop, like it doesn't play from that point, right? So in this way, they kind of act like bookmarks. So you can go straight to the parts of the track you wish to play. And then from there, I guess you hit play. So I guess you could kind of look at memory cues as a way to map in and out points, always assuring you play the best parts of each track. And if you have no idea how or where to set memory cues for club gear, I have a free video all about this in my free mini course. So check out, I'll put the link in below the description. It's really popular, helped a lot of people. But anyway, so in short though, when playing in clubs, just to be on the safe side, okay, I always would have memory cues mapping out the tracks just in case the gear doesn't read hot cues, okay? However, hot cues are actually on all controllers, okay? And the chances are that if you've got a controller, you're using hot cues, and there's nothing wrong with that. And the thing with hot cues are when you hit a hot cue, okay, not only does it go to that part of the song, but it starts playing from that point. And in that essence, you could kind of like hit them, jump around different points in the song, and you can kind of like do mashups on the fly, and you can highlight certain words. And like I say, we'll do a bunch of that stuff coming up. And in that way, you can kind of use them like effects, okay? And it's like, but in saying that, I think like effects, it should kind of like come down to being like the icing on the cake. Like I think what makes a great DJ at first is probably actually having really strong core foundations, knowing how to phrase, knowing how to beat match by ear, getting your arrangement down. And then once you've got all that down, then we'll move to that. And this series I'm about now, it's all about getting those super strong foundations. And from there, you can start building into that. Anyway, right, so back to memory cues, but long story short, let's say you've got a record box controller, the chances are you can set and select memory cues. And if you, let's say you are using hot cues, right, but you want to use hot cues like memory cues, okay? So you just got a controller like Denon or anything, right, Tractor, something like that, and you want to kind of use hot cues like you would memory cues, meaning you hit them and it doesn't start playing straight away. It's more like you use them to go to the part of the song you want to play, like to kind of, that's what a memory cue does. You go to the part you want to play, and then it can actually play. Well, what you can do is you can actually apply a gate feature to the hot cues. And what I'll do is in my software here, you just have to go in, I go into settings here and go look for like controller, then I go down, look for hot cue, and it says during pause, gate playback is applied. So if I tick that box, then what will happen is I'll just close that down. And then what happens is when I hit that, it doesn't start playing. It goes to that point in the song. Same over here. I go to that point, go to that point, go to that point. And then the beauty of this is then you can use them like memory cues and hot cues. So that's actually in kind of like pause mode. But then I can go to the part I want to play, hit play, and then once it's playing, then you could jump around the song with your hot cues. So you get the best of both worlds doing that by applying gate, and it kind of gets you used to using memory cues like hot cues. But hot cues like memory cues. But just on that quickly, a lot of controllers will have the memory cues, and on the club gear, see, I'm going to bust out the club gear in a sec, but the club gear here is underneath. They're just here as well. It's next to my looping, and these are my kind of cue core memories, and they will go and index between the memory cue points. Okay, so anyway, and on here too, I can select them, but they're slightly positioned slightly differently. So it says here cue loop call. So that's like my memory cues. So what I can do is I go shift, and then I can, index through the song and select them that way, which is a little bit of a pain. And maybe in next week's class, I might do something on the DDJ 400, and you'll see it's got a very similar layout to the club gear, and it just means next to the looping, you've kind of got, you can select your memory cues up there. Now, the only other big difference between controllers and club gear are without a doubt the performance pads, okay? So It appears to me, okay, every controller has performance pads, okay, and they're awesome actually, and they usually consist of like hot cues and pad effects, beat jumps. On some of them, maybe there's looping and roll and stuff like that as well. So let's just quickly now compare the looping sections and some of the effects. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you where you can actually find the looping features on club gear and how you can replicate the effects that you'll find on your actual performance pads on club gear. Okay, so to do that, first of all, well, on here, this is very much like the club gear. You've got the looping, the in and out points at the top here, and I'll show you the club gear in a second, but that's pretty much placed in exactly the same position on clubs. Now, on the club equipment, but on here, to halve those loops, this is what happens on some features on club gear. You can select a loop, so let's say it's the beginning of the loop, that's the close of the loop, and you can then halve it by hitting that, right? And then you can do that. I've got videos on that, right? And then you can times it by 2 going the other way as well, okay? So it's saying in and out points, so it's my in, my out, times it by 2, halve it, okay? And you can do that on a lot of controllers, but then again, on some Serato controllers, under the looping features are down here, you have in and out points, so you can select auto loops. So say on here, I've got a 4-beat auto loop. I could actually undo my loop and just hit that, and that will do like a 4-beat loop, okay? Now I could halve it, okay? And again, but you just got to find where your looping features are on your gear, okay? And sometimes it could be on the effects, but on this one, it's there. And on the club gear, that's where it's located. Okay, but now what I want to do is I mainly want to compare because people think, oh my God, I just love doing all these effects on here. But pretty much the main effects that you're going to find on your performance pads, you can find on the club gear. So what I might do quickly, I might just quickly unhook this. Just 1 second. Okay, so anyway, so on here. So let's have a look. So I'm going to bring up my computer as well, and we're going to look at both. So what happens is, first of all, that was the looping I said, and then I can go the in and out points, but on here, then you can halve it or times it by 2 in there, and I've done videos on that. But just looking at the performance pads quickly, so if I go up here, I'm going to take it back to, 2 deck horizontal, and let's go have a look at our pad effects. Now, see, I have different pad effects like 1 and 2 here, but what you're going to notice is all these main pad effects that you're going to find, they set up what they think are the main effects. But you can find all of these effects on your beat effect rack on a mixer, no doubt. So look, they've got like reverb here. I can just go on here, find reverb, and then they're suggesting reverb at like 50%. So if I go reverb, apply the effect to the channel I want. So I've got to select the channel that I want to use it to, pick the effect, and then I can select the intensity of the effect. So that's saying 50%, that's 50% there, so it's the same. Then I've got echo at 3/4, so I go echo here, go find 3/4 on there, and I just turn on and off the effect by hitting that, So I guess in a way, I'll be honest, all these effects that I'm seeing here, they're actually all in the beat effects, but the difference is, and this is like also goes well with my comparing it to car analogy, so you've got automatics and manuals. These are kind of like manuals because with this, right, I can just hit a button and it's all of a sudden, it's everything into one. So I can have, I can go echo 3/4, bang, and I'll just do that one thing. Here, I've got to go select which channel I'm applying the effect to, select the effect, select the intensity effect, and hit play. So there's a little bit more. So it's like with an automatic, the car will change like gears automatically for you. But then if you're actually driving, you got to do a few things. Personally, I drive a manual. If I drive a manual, sure, I've got to do more, but I feel like I've got a bit more control over the car. But again, I'm not saying that this is better than better than controllers. A lot of controllers actually are probably better than club gear. But I just want to get you to a point that you can do everything you're doing on a controller on the club gear as well, and vice versa. Okay, so I pretty much freestyled that, but I guess my goal for you guys is just sort of understanding and making it a little less daunting, the jump across from a controller to club gear. Like at the end of the day, they realistically all do pretty much the same thing, and the layout's really, really similar. All I was really saying was, I guess, just as a recap, sometimes the visuals on club gear is going to be a lot less than what you find on a controller. And in a way, that's kind of cool, because the problem is, I know, because I was a controller DJ for a while, and I've gone out and done weddings and functions and stuff like that. But what happens is, if you're actually beat matching by sight, you can find yourself looking at the computer screen the whole time. And I think sometimes getting rid of that, looking less, training yourself to look less, you can actually then, you feel a little bit more engaged with the crowd. And that's why I love turning up to clubs with USBs. I just turn up, got a USB in my pocket, just put it in, I'm good to go. I'm not glued to my computer, I'm playing, and even if I've got less visuals, I want you to get to a point, well, if you know how to beat match and you know how to read the mini waveforms and line up the BPMs, you'll be fine, you know what I mean? And then all I'm saying then on top of that, if you're used to kind of using all these effects, well then, you know, you just got to get slightly used to the positioning. It's like the first time you go from driving an auto to a manual. Like at first it's a little bit, but you can do the same thing, you know, and that's the goal. So it's just like, you know, making it seem way less confronting. That's what it is. So anyway, I hope that's been helpful. But one thing quickly, just finishing off, right, just some advice. I do find the biggest issues new DJs probably face is they tend to probably overkill it on the effects a bit. And personally, let's pretend I was teaching you one-on-one in Sydney, or you got my online course, you know, whatever, right? I would probably be covering effects near the end of the course, okay? Because effects should be treated like icing on a cake. And they're a little bit super sweet, it can really bring it all together, but too much can kind of get annoying. So, but however, right, the cake is your ability to have super strong foundations and to know how to arrange a world-class set and do flawless transitions with your EQ. And then even before hitting effects, I'd be exploring looping and playing the best parts of each song, even creating build-ups and all that. And then once you've got a world-class set, then you can start introducing effects to highlight some of your transitions and to also bring color to parts of the track where there's not much going on. But again, if you want that kind of detail, 100% check out my online courses. These videos here, they're more designed to give you ideas and inspiration and kind of just make it seem a little less intimidating, okay? And there's 100%. The YouTube stuff goes into nowhere near the same detail as the courses do. And the courses have all these close-ups and it's a lot more professional. But you know, there's step-by-step instructions, all that. Right now, I'm not even scripting, right? I'm just sort of having some fun with you guys. So, but anyway, I'm positive actually. So with the course, I can transform the way you play pretty quickly, and I'm getting so much positive feedback about that. So I appreciate all my students out there. Thank you for watching. And these videos kind of go really hand in hand with them. But anyway, back to this video quickly. So to finish this up, how about next week, I'm going to do a mini showcase set on a DDJ 400, okay? And I'm going to disable sync. I'm going to hide my waveforms completely. I'm going to use my performance pads like memory cues, or actually just use memory cues, and just actually try and just sort of use it like how I would club gear. And what we're going to do is then we're going to move through this series together with the goal that we can build up to using 4 decks on the DDJ 1000s, and we can mix doing all the crazy stuff that everyone's doing, but relying more on core foundations alone, not automating it. Then the goal is, even if you do decide to revert back to sync, it's not going to matter. You would have reached a point that you know how to DJ no matter the gear, no matter the software, and you're a very well-rounded DJ that can be flexible in your approach, and you will never be limited by gear or car, right, or circumstances ever again. So anyway, thank you. So anyway, please let me know what you think, and you know, you're open to kind of learning the traditional ways, and then from there we can build from that. That's what this is all about. Anyway, I feel for the first time in my life, I'm really part of something special here. I feel I can contribute my experience, and thanks again for watching. I really appreciate it. I really do.